Well, hey everybody, it's Casey Jaycox with the Quarterback Dadcast. We are getting towards the tail end of season 5, and if those are of you, or if you're watching on video, welcome. We're on YouTube now, which is fun to actually have a video podcast. You get to see what this crazy bald dude in Seattle looks like. I'm not talking about my guests; I'm talking about me. But I'm very excited for today's episode because most guests, everybody, come through referral, and today's another example of that. One of our former guests, the one and only Justin J.P. Priest out of the Midwest, joined this fantastic company called ConsultNet, and he said, and I heard him interview our next guest, which is Don Goldberg, who's the executive director and founder of ConsultNet. I heard his story. I was like, man, what a cool story, and I heard from about him being on the East Coast, and it triggered me to think about Cuddy Hunk. And I really liked his story about how his son was a skier. So I'm gonna stop and tease you there. But not only is our next guest a Plymouth State Panther, but he's also a staffing veteran and a guy that really loves the words integrity, professionalism, and leadership. But more importantly, we're going to talk to Don today about Don the dad and how Don's working hard to become that ultimate quarterback or leader of his home. So further ado, Mr. Goldberg, welcome to the Quarterback Dadcast.
Thank you, Casey. I'm really excited to be here.
Cool. Well, we always start out each episode with gratitude. So tell me, what are you most grateful for as a dad today?
Just having a healthy family that we communicate well, and we do as much as we can that our schedule is allowed to do together. So that's where my gratitude comes from, and where everybody's so busy today, you almost have to schedule things in order to get together, and that's what we do well.
Very good. And sometimes that's an answer that I think people say, but I love that I could feel it, that you meant it. And I think if you find yourself at home, dads, when you hear me talk about gratitude, like slow down to really think about what and why you're grateful. And so, like, I do gratitude work every morning, Don, and usually I start with God, thanks for waking me up today. And it really brings a smile to my face because I got a chance to do something today. I have a chance to talk to you. I have a chance to, I'm flying to Nashville later tonight for a conference this week. So it gets me like in the right mind. But what I'm grateful for is a couple things. One, my son's going through a great growth time of life, the little teeny bit adversity. I mean, first world adversity, I would say, just about he's a college athlete. So he's going through just navigating. It's been so fun having conversations with him at a different level. He's a freshman in college. So I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful for my daughter who had homecoming this past weekend. She was exhausted and she had 2 basketball games yesterday. But she freaking shot the lights out, Don. She had
Fantastic.
5 3-pointers in her game yesterday, which was
No
like,
way.
oh, so fun. I'm a big girl dad. I love watching her compete, and it just, every time I watch her compete, just jacks me up. So that's what I'm grateful for today.
Good. Do you get nervous when she starts?
No, it's funny. I get more nervous watching my son play golf
Okay.
because at least I can cheer at the golf course. You can't really scream up and down and jump up and down. You can, I guess you could, but I just know how hard golf is. And basketball, it's like, let's say, for example, you're not shooting it well, like Anescu and Stewie last night, the WNBA championship, they didn't shoot the ball well, but you can play defense, you can pass the ball well. There's so much more ways to impact a basketball game. So I think that's why I don't get as nervous.
Good.
But golf, you're by yourself.
Yeah. Every shot counts.
Yeah. And if you blow one left out of bounds, you can walk back to the tee by yourself. It's a lonely game and the golf gods, I swear, they love to pick on you when you're not hitting it well.
I can see that. That makes sense. Thanks for sharing that.
Well, bring me inside the Goldberg huddle if you can. I'd love to learn. I know your son's out of the house now, but I'd love to learn. Like, talk about him, and then share a little bit how you and your wife met.
Okay. Let me start off with the wife meeting. I guess is a good way to start off. I had graduated from college and moved to Boston, and where I started my career. That's my second company. I didn't start it, but I was working for a staffing company for the first time, and that's a whole story how I got involved with that because there's no university of staffing. So, I graduated with a marketing degree from Plymouth State University, and didn't play football there, but played track and some other things. swim team, and I was on the martial arts team there, which was fun. So when I came down, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do next. I happened to be at a beach party near Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and I heard these people talking about renting a house in Killington, Vermont for the winter. Skiing was a big passion of mine. It had been since I was about 11 years old. And so I packed my stuff up. We found a house up there and we rented it for the winter. And I couldn't just ski and just hang out all the time. I had been a ski instructor for many years during college, which was a great way to pay my way and meet and socialize and get better in the sport. So I became a part-time ski instructor for Killington up there, and they have a pre-meeting time at Thanksgiving where we all get together and we hear about all the new rules and what we're going to be doing and how we're going to be doing it. And I did that for a couple of years, and then the third year we had the same meeting, and now I'm a veteran of the third year. And there was a woman that came in with chestnut brown hair, and she looked like a Vermonter, and she had brown boots on and a vest and a plaid shirt, and she looked very, very attractive to me. And I looked at a friend of mine, Michael, who had since has passed, and so I like to think about him often. And I said, "That's a woman I want to get to know." And that weekend, I had the opportunity to talk to her on the social situations. And over the next 3 or 4 months, I finally got a date with her. It took a while. She was in a relationship or coming out of a relationship. And we met as part-time ski instructors. And for the next several years, that was our community and our family with all the people that we met. And I would work all week. And then Friday afternoons, I'd jump in my car and spend the weekends with her and all our great friends. And that's how it started.
Wow. I love how, I mean, that was some years ago, but you remembered to the outfit, which I love. And I think if your wife listens to this, she's gonna appreciate that.
Yeah,
Still sparks a flame in there for you, which is awesome.
right. And the only confusion I had was through most of the meeting, she had her head down on the desk and I believe she was sleeping. Turns out that she had kind of tied one on the night before. And I said, "That's an even better reason to get to know her."
Love it, love it. And then tell us about your son.
Yeah. My son is 33 years old. He is a professional ski racer by profession, and a two-time Olympian. And he's on the Alpine ski race team for the United States. So he's been representing the United States for 11 years. He went through the whole scenario where we're at Killington, Vermont, the first year when he was 2.5 years old, and we had a little bamboo stick between the two of us. I have the picture somewhere in my office. And he just loved the sport from day one. He had an incredible amount of passion for it. We couldn't get him off the slopes. During that transitional period for him, just learning, we moved to Salt Lake City, Utah, where I started a new company. So the weekends were spent going up to Snowbird, Utah, skiing at Snowbird Winter and Summer Resort. And my wife was a nurse at the clinic there, emergency room nurse. And I was actually the first winter I took off before I started that company. And he came up every day with us, and we just couldn't get him off the trails. Whether it was just skiing, and he took up snowboarding when he was like 5,
Mm.
and he just loved the snow. He just couldn't get off, and he would just say, I would say, "Jared, it's time to leave," and he'd say, "Well, the lifts are still running." And I had to explain to him that was the lift that took people up to the hotel at night. And so I had to sometimes negotiate that with hot chocolate and French fries and that kind of. But yeah, he went through the whole process. He was on the ski team at Snowbird when he was 7 years old, probably one of the youngest kids on there, and didn't really mean anything other than, he could find his way to where the coaches met. But he had a pretty good career through his childhood, and his whole friendship base was around sports based, around skiing, around mountain biking, around anything that had to do with climbing, like technical rock climbing, because the director of the program was an incredible outdoorsman, and he's just been put in the Intermountain Hall of Fame. That's how important this guy is in this area. And Jared got to be mentored by him.
Wow.
So that was the
How
beginning.
much of that is was in him versus just like the environment that like ignited that passion? Do you think?
I would say the passion was always there. However, the environment was incredible. The Snowbird Ski and Sports Education Foundation, which he was part of, was involved in just helping people learn the lifelong love of skiing or snowboarding or whatever they were doing on the snow. So, it was just always fun for him. He couldn't wait most of the time. And I have a story for you later, but he couldn't wait to get up to the ski area. We have the best snow on earth. He had an incredible, rat pack of kids where, they were going so crazy and fast. They would take their ski coats and they'd put them inside out so that the ski patrol couldn't see him going so fast. I mean, they were never out of control, but, they never wanted to get caught by the ski patrol. And there was kind of a joke between the ski patrol and them as we found out later. They knew exactly who these kids were because they were the best skiers on the mountain. So, a little of both, but the passion was ignited by the enthusiasm that surrounded him. So,
Wow. Well, I want to get into that for sure, but I want to rewind the tape and I want to learn more about you, Dom. And so I'd love to, if you can, take me back to what was life like growing up for you.
okay,
And I'd love to just learn about that, and specifically the impact your parents had on you now that you're a father.
good. Great questions. Great stuff to reflect on. It's We grew up in a very, very small town, about 20 miles out of Boston. I think when we lived there was like 20,000 people there. My father used the GI Bill for $500 and got a loan for $11,400 to buy a house on a street that was basically somewhat swampy. During I was the third child, but they finally did a water table reduction in the town, and there was literally cranes and backhoes all over the town, which was fun because we had all these things to play on and everything. But they ended
Right.
up lowering the water table because basically the town, when it first started, God knows how they got a permit to build houses, but everything was a little bit, there was reeds everywhere, and all sorts of crazy bird, wildfire, flower, everything was crazy. So we grew up in a very small town in a very small block and everybody was young. It was the perfect scenario. I wish that I could have found that with my son growing up, but we kind of moved around a little too much. But basically what happened is, and I think this happened for a lot of people, is your mom would say, go outside, come back for dinner, come back when it's dark. And that's basically what happened. There wasn't any problems of, pedophiles or whatever around the neighborhood or anything. There was just kids running around playing sports. We moved to another part of the town when I got a little older, and then it was field hockey, stickball, pretty much street hockey. It was baseball every day. I was riding our bicycles any place we wanted to go, and the same thing was come back after dark and let me know where you are. Call on the 5-digit phone number. It was 43154. I mean, that's what you called. It was crazy. It was that small, and in fact, when I was really little, I remember that we had a party line. That
Oh
was the
yeah.
beginning of the telephones, and there's been a lot of things from there. So I got to high school, and I took all the sports that I did, and I was a three-letter man in high school. It wasn't a big high school. There was 215 graduating students. So there was we were lean. We were kind of Southern football when I played football. So the coach was great. He understood the size that we were, and we were playing against a lot of good teams. So he just said we had to be lean and mean and be smart, and that's something that I've really taken through my whole life, through my own childhood all the way up to the way we run my business today. So I went from there. I played. I was on the swim team. I was a track and field person. That was just a lot of fun because I found as myself the way that I was wired that the more busy I was, the better student that I was because I knew I had to plan my days around how I was going to do things and get them done. But if I had any idle time, they say it's the devil's hand or whatever. That was me. I just got lost. So as long as I had a structure in place, and again, that's one of my lifelong learnings for myself.
Now tell me, what did mom and dad do?
Yeah. Okay. So my dad worked for a vending machine company. He was a part owner. They did cigarettes and jukeboxes and pinball machines and anything that had to do with coin operated, coffee machines and that kind of thing. And on the weekends, he wasn't one of those guys that punched the clock from 9 to 5. He was probably up 5 o'clock every morning, and I usually could hear him cursing if the newspaper wasn't there on time. That was my alarm clock in the morning when I was growing up. And he had to have his newspaper at breakfast. And a lot of weekends, Casey, I would go to work with him, and we'd go around and we'd go to these bowling alleys and arcades and amusement parks and very very seedy bars. And that was the first time I really saw that there was this craziness of these dark, smoke-filled, beer-smelling bars that you see on TV that actually exist. And I live in those, and we go there and we would count quarters. And the thing that my job was to find all the silver that was in those vending machines. So my father would collect silver coins, and he had a huge collection of coins from that. He used to moonlight, so he was working extra hours to make extra money for our family. Back then I think I found out that he was making like $20,000 or something. And I was like, you think about that, you think about what the dollar has changed. And we were just lower to middle class people, and the family, my uncles and aunts and everything, we did everything ourselves. So one of the jobs that he had was one of my favorite. He worked at this place in Nantasket Beach called Paragon Park, which is now, of course, it's a condominium complex. But back in the day, he would open up all the arcades for the amusement park for the springtime. And when he did that, he would put on like 10 games on a game and then move to the next one. So he was mechanically oriented,
Mm.
obviously. So he was, changing out resistors and bulbs and everything, and I helped him do that, and glass and everything. So I became quite a good pinball player. And then when he got busy and he was done doing certain things, he'd hand me these passes that he'd get from somebody, one of the higher up people at the park, and then he would send me on the way, and he'd say, "Come back at 4 o'clock in the afternoon." So here is this kid, 11 years old, pretty much. I remember when I was 11, I couldn't get on the roller coaster yet because I wasn't tall enough. But I remember just running around and just running on rides by myself. It was a different time. Can you imagine sending your 11-year-old kid to an amusement park with thousands of people and expecting them with no problem to come back? So that was my relationship with my father. His dad died when he was like 12 years old.
Mm.
So I think that had to do with his relationship with me a lot, because he wasn't a very stoic guy. We didn't talk about a lot of stuff. Um, he just kind of let me live my life, and I have two siblings that are older than me. I was the baby, and I think it was pretty much as they would guide us, listen to what we had to say, but there wasn't a lot of feedback. Although one just came to my attention, coming back to that newspaper in the morning. I came back from college, and I was sitting there having breakfast. My mother was the artist, and I'll get to her in a second. Totally different brains, you know. And he's reading his newspaper and having his coffee, and not talking to us. And I think the TV's on in the background. I said to my mother, I said, "Geez, I just I joined a fraternity. Went through the pledging thing, and I think we're all going to get tattoos." And my father took down the newspaper and went, "If you do that, I'm cutting you off from college," and put the newspaper back up. So he was a man, he was a man of very, very few words, but very, very impactful. That's what I can say about that.
What
My
was the
mother,
tattoo? Going to be like a
yeah.
big eagle on your back, or?
Well, I never got a tattoo because I knew he was funding my college at the time. So
But if you did, what was it going to be? I want to
oh, it was
see it.
going to be something on my hip. It was going to
Okay,
be like, Lambda Chi Alpha. It was going to be a very small something that I would probably show the girls.
there you
But
go.
I'm really glad I never did that. As Jewish heritage, it's not the best thing to have a tattoo on your body, because it's you can't be actually buried in a Jewish cemetery if you have a tattoo, unless it's what they had originally. So
Right.
I didn't know that at that day, but I found out a few days later, and that was my excuse to my Lambda Chi brothers. So that
Yeah,
worked.
good reason not to.
Right. So I spent a lot of time with my father. He was amazing as far around sports, as far as taking us to. He belonged to these societies. He was a Mason. He belonged to a thing called the Knights of Pythias, and it was men's groups, and there was a woman part of that too. but they had a lot of activities for, it was all around family. So we were always going someplace and always going to a pool and always, diving and running around and doing, sack races in the town. Again, it was out of a Norman Rockwell picture. We had, July 4th type stuff. We had a lake that I was a lifeguard in high school and college that we did did everything. So everything was it was incredibly family oriented. It was, I like I said, I wish we could have done that more with my son. I mean, we did different things obviously, but it wasn't as everything was. You just did it because it was just there. It was just done. We moved when he was 7 years, when he was 3.5 years old. And, I didn't even realize that I had to get him in some type of like school. I had to
Mm.
figure that out. It wasn't a family, huge family thing that says, oh, so where's Jared going to go to school? We had to figure that out on our own. So my mother, on the other hand, was the probably the glue that held us all together. She was an artist by trade. She worked a very very small stint in as an office manager, but pretty much she was a stay at home mom. But really had her own hobbies, and one of them was, as I said, is art. And she was 50 years old when she graduated from the Boston University for Art. Yeah, I think it's called. I forget the name exactly, but I used to go with her. And again, talking about making us independent, she would drop me off well, she went to the Mass College of Art, and she used to drop me off at the art museum when she went to her class.
Wow.
So I would go in there, I'd pay, 50 cents or whatever it was, and I would run around the art museum for 2 hours, and she would say, meet me out in front at whatever time. So again, just, I'm thinking about this independence that we have that I don't think children have today. Very, very thoughtful woman. She was the one that was, touchy feely, liked to take walks, liked to ask questions, liked to kind of know what was going on, more so than my father. So I had that balance from both sides.
Um, where do you think your dad's ability to be handy came from?
I think it was, he had to be. He was basically he was brought up by his grandmother. Well, it was his mother, and because his father wasn't there, my grandmother, and he had to be the man in the house. I think at a very very young age. He went to school. He went to somewhat of a trade school, but never graduated college. So it wasn't a thing whether or not I was going to go to college and not graduate. Because he just didn't have the money and he had to stop early. So I think it was a school of hard knocks. When he got this job, I'm not even sure how he got this job at this vending machine company, but he had to learn how to do things. I mean, he was always changing out light fixtures and doing plumbing. And him and my uncle, would be digging up the front lawn and planting trees, and they were painting their houses. And and at one point they played a lot of bridge growing up. I never got into that game, but that was a big thing. And like I said, we were in the small. Basically, it was like 5 houses almost like next to each other. So what they did is they figured out how to put an intercom system on by wires through the telephone poles to everybody's houses, so they could hear if the kids were up or not, so they could put us to bed, and I'll go to one person's house, and cocktail and play bridge. So it was nuts. I mean, think about back, think about them putting,
Oh,
wires
love it.
on the wires, and how illegal that is today.
That's
They
so
were very,
good.
very industrious. All of them were.
I love the visual of that. I can just see like get the kids to bed, sit and play cards. Who's pouring drinks?
Yeah, exactly. Can you hear them? Everyone?
Right.
That kind of thing. Yeah. So that was like growing up for me.
As you think about, I mean, independence. I love that you have that skill that was taught early, and I'm sure that provided so many benefits throughout your life. But if you think about a couple of core values that were instilled in you early,
Yeah.
tell me what comes to mind, and maybe a story to kind of further share it with us.
Yeah. Interesting question. I think that I wasn't a leader at that point in my life. I still don't see myself as a leader. I see myself as a middle of a pack kind of person. I have a dog now, and we're trying to identify. He's a puppy, and we're identifying where he is. And I kind of look at him, and I see how he acts and how he reacts to people. And I love to support people. Um, I love to be behind the scenes, and make things happen. I was in high school. I was part of the student council, and one of the things we did is we put on events for the whole school. And one of the things we had is this really fantastic community center that was run by a fabulous couple of people that would allow us to have like bands in there. And I think that what I want to do is my group was my idea was to have groups and gatherings and try to figure out how to do that. I just like to be part of the cog in the wheel. I would enlist my friends who are still friends today, and I'd say, okay, Ron, you need to do this, and Tim, you need to do this, and I'm going to do this, and let's just put it together, together. And I didn't have to be, it didn't have to be Don who's doing this. It had to be everything, and just being part of a varsity club and just saying, hey, we really need to get new coats. And, I would be part of that, but we would put it together. I don't know if those are good examples, but, just trying to be, I guess I was the person that tried to engage other people and try to come up with, thoughtful ideas that would really engage a lot of people and to just enhance other people's lives, at the same
Do you
time.
think that was taught from your parents though?
Yeah, I think so. My dad being part of these organizations, at one point he did a stint, as the Grand Poobah, probably with the horns on. I never went to that, but I remember, him sitting in his car and me helping him learn, like, everything that he had to learn. It was very, very, Knights of the Round Table kind of stuff. And I could see that he would, step out of his comfort zone, and and I think the independence came from him. He was not the guy. I just saw him always doing things individual, with his work. It was, and with these organizations, he was. I always saw him as his own individual person. If anything that I wish he did more of, and it wasn't a big deal to me now that I come back on it, is like, I was playing, Pop Warner football or baseball, and I wish my dad would come more, and he just didn't have the time because he was working sometimes 7 hours a week, and it didn't hurt me inside, but I'd see, oh, this guy, this dad is here and this dad is here, but my dad's not here. So every once in a while he'd show up, but I find that I would find other people. Like I had this coach Adams that was a good mentor to me. So I found what maybe I was lacking through other people. And,
Mm,
he gave me some great advice. I had an uncle that was like my other father. So I found ways to find what I couldn't find with my father. So I think the independence came from, listen, no one's going to give this to me. No one's going to, give me direction without me asking. In fact, if what came to mind, and back to my son, I know we're going to get to this, is I thought very closely or very hard about, how do I interact with my son? Is it okay to transition into that a little, or is it too early to do that?
no,
Um,
I was going to get there in a second, but I
yeah.
got a question for you. It'll be a great lead into that.
Okay. So, I said, I thought to myself, how do I interact with my son? I had a mom that was like, how you doing? What's going on? How you feeling? And I had a
Yep.
dad that would never ask any questions like that, would just answer questions I asked. And I thought about me being an independent person where I had to always seek out and find what I needed. Nobody would come to me. I wasn't the guy that had the silver spoon, and people just say, "Oh, Don, come on, I want you to meet these people. These guys will help you out." So, the way that I interact with my son is I'm very patient with him, and I found this to be very, very helpful doing growing up because I would hear about other friends, and I was talking to a friend last night that's having a problem with his son, and I said, "Well, how do you interact with him?" And she said, "Well, I'm trying to ask him questions, I'm trying to help him, I'm trying to do this." And I would just do the opposite. I would just sit back and wait for him to come to me. And how it was so difficult to me because I really knew the answer. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew how I wanted to help him, but I would wait for him and be patient. Sometimes it would be weeks or
Yeah.
months before he would come to me. So that's how I think I was programmed or wired to because my dad never did that. My dad was always there, and I didn't like it, but now I know why he probably did it.
Yeah. There's a lot of gold there, and a lot of meat, and this could be like a 6 hour long podcast, but I got to make sure I condense it into an hour for us. Um, what's interesting though is you said, well, the sports, and it was a different time. I totally get that, and my dad's dad passed away when he was 6,
Oh, okay.
And then my dad passed away 2021, December 29th. Rest in peace, Pops. We
Yeah.
dedicated entire season 3 to him. But my dad on the other side, Don, he was the dad that didn't miss anything. Like to the point,
Okay.
like he'd almost bankrupt himself going to my college football games, like these random shithole towns, and like, he'd be there even when I wasn't playing. Um, but for you, do you find that? And maybe this is a good transition, because I know that when you got into business and leadership, and then I think you probably saw your son had a gift, and then this is where you guys really kind of went in all in on your, I'd say, your dad game, and helping
Yeah.
shape kind of who he was. Do you feel like, because during the time it was that your dad wasn't there for every single thing that you went through, that you wanted to do the opposite? Do you think?
Yeah, yeah. But I thought about it very thoughtfully, and I said, I don't want to be, I didn't want to be all over him, helicopter parent, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I wanted him to find his own way and find his own, passions. He just happened to find it because, I mean, he was just, my friend always jokes and he says, there's a couple of different types of parents. There's the parents that, they have kids and they just go ahead and keep doing what they're doing. There's the parents that, inject their kid from time to time, but, don't keep at arm's length. And then there's the third parent that is just totally just dove in and went crazy with parentship. And that's what I was. And so I figured I had to put the hose on. He was the same way, and he's got an amazing family. And I like to see how he handles his family. He's got grandkids and everything from that. So I think it's important to put the governor on at the right time. So I would call it another strategy in business, how to deal with a child. I only have one. So that was really important to me, that I would strategically inject myself. And
Hmm.
also I would kind of use my same kind of like backdoor approach. I wouldn't call it backdoor approach, but middle of the pack approach, where I would be a suggestion rather than be this is what you have to do, even though I felt I knew the answer, like us parents always do, right?
Right. So one of the things that made me really want to have you on the show was when you guys your fantastic podcast that ConsultNet does, that JP helps interview
Yeah,
folks.
I love
I
that.
remember you told a story, when your son was young, that you started to kind of change your work schedule,
Yeah, yeah.
and that spoke to me because I did the same thing when my son was about 18 months old.
Ah,
I'd love for you to share that story if you could with her, because I'm hopeful there's a dad listening that
yeah.
maybe he's the busy dad. He thinks he's, you know, that he's so needed, he's so important in the world. If I'm not there, that means the world's going to end, which is false. It won't. And I think your story is a good one, because it empowered business being on, but also empowered, you want to be a present dad.
Yes, I did. And well, first, when I thought about having a flexible schedule, I did think about what that was going to mean to my employees. I was very lucky and fortunate that I had a company that I had started, and that I had this potential flexibility with lots of guilt, I guess, because I understand that if you don't put 100% into something, you're not going to get close to 100% back. So I had to figure out how to do that, and I happened to come across this article, Microsoft Bill Gates, and found out what his work schedule was. And I had a deep, this is, there was internet, but there wasn't Wikipedia at that point.
Yeah.
So I dug in, I found some articles, and what he would do is he would start his day early. He would have breakfast with his family. He would work until sometime in the mid afternoon, and then have time with his children. And then all the emails started flying at nighttime, when the kids went to bed. So I didn't do exactly that, but I said, okay, so here's a guy that's immensely successful, and he early on figured out a thing that would work with him and his family. So mine was a little different. I wasn't really pushed into it. However, my wife was very very active at that point. She had a schedule as a nurse, but she also was a passionate golfer. And so, when you're on a golf course, it's hours. And she would say, "Can you pick up Jared most of the time during the week, so I can, get everything in that I need to do?" I mean, she was taking care of the house, She was an amazing, a household specialist, and working a job not full time, but still doing that, and then and providing for us. So I said, yeah, I'll do that. So I got a gift from a client or a customer once, and it was this wind up clock. And every morning when I came into the office, and I'd come in between, early 7:30, whatever, because people would be coming in, and I'd start my day, and that was after dropping them off at school, unless I was dropping off at the bus or whatever. So I was free, got in the office, would get this. I still have it on my desk. It's this red clock. I'd wind it up and I put it 3:15, and it was this was before cell phones. It was before we had radio alarm clocks. So this thing, someplace on the off, I'd leave it in my office, and somebody inevitably would say, "Don, your alarm's going off right now. It's time for you to go." So it became a culture in my office that I would leave at 3:15. People would keep an eye on that clock and listen to it, and then I'd be, oh no, and I'd grab my stuff and I'd run out and pick them up and wait in the parent line and pick them up, bring them home, and he would have his little desk in my office and I would have my desk, and we would work. And that's how it worked. And I don't know. I mean, this probably resonate with a lot of parents, but for some reason, when the phone rings, kids turn into like monsters. They just want your attention. They just want, right? Does that resonate for you?
Oh
And
yeah.
I have this chest where I keep a lot of his old relics. And I happened to find in one of my drawers one day when we were moving a little note that he had typed, and it was all spelled all wrong. And it said, "Dad, I apologize for being such a bad boy when the phone rings. I know that that's how you make your money." It
That's
was
so
like,
funny.
eclectic, but that was the thing. So he understood that my phone, and now it's this little thing, right, was the way that I interacted with people. And it's been really funny to see how he has become interacting with adults and donors and everything as his career continues. So.
Wow. What was, as you reflect back on that day when you had to like, you're run the company, but you also want to be present. Like, what were some of the hardest ways to get that habit to stick?
It wasn't hard at all. That's the whole thing because I was committed to it.
Love it.
I needed to be. I mean, it's like you call it there's it's a village, right? It's my team huddle. We have a big team. He had a babysitter that worked part time. We tried the au pair model for a very very short time, and I never seen two little people fight as much as my son and this au pair. So I figured that wasn't the way that was going to work for him. So we had people come in during the day to help out. So we had a village. We had people that were responsible most of the time. So I was just committed to that, and it was hard. But now with the flexible work enablement that has come actually from a really very very bad time in our lifetime, COVID, it's really made it easier. I think people it's more accepted how to do that, and I am more accepting of my people and my employees because I was we were in at this time, out at this time, work a couple nights till so and so, and I've become more flexible, and it's mostly about the philosophy, the passion, and key metrics that run companies even better in our lives.
Yeah, I love that, Don. It's funny when you told your story, and I heard it the first time, and I heard it now the second time. It hit me, and actually, I don't know if you think back, but like for me, when I made that choice um, to leave, I left every day at 4, and it was really really hard because I remember this was early in my staff and consulting days where I was, the company loved Casey because I was making a ton of money. Things were rolling, but I was deep down, I was miserable because I was getting in the office at 7, so I didn't get to see my son right before he went to school, and then I'd get home at like 6:45, and he'd
Yeah,
go to bed at 7. I'm like, well, this sucks. This isn't what being a dad's about. And I remember going to my boss at the time. Shout out to Angela Ronica. And I know I've told the story before in the podcast, but I'll tell it again
sure.
because I want to give her love. And I said,
Great story.
I said, I'm miserable. And she goes, well, what do you mean? And we talked through it. She goes, well, I got an answer. We'll leave at 4. I go, I can't leave at 4. She goes, why not? You don't trust us? I said, no, I trust you. But I made the sarcastic joke. I said, it's not when we don't work at a bank. Like sometimes we got to get a hold of customers. She's like, Case, there's this thing called a cell phone. We can still get a hold of you. And the world's not going to end if you don't, here until 5. So you leave at 4. We got your back. And once I made that switch, that literally from like, and I retrained my team, I retrained my clients, like, hey, you might try to reach me between 5 and 7. I'm probably not going to be available because that's my family time, but I will always get back to you that night. Like once I did that, consistently made a habit, that's where
Yeah.
my career really freaking took off.
Good, good.
Did that similar thing happen to you as you took?
Absolutely. It gave me the flexibility so that I could focus when I was focusing, and then I had that time with him to focus on him, knowing, that the culture, for me had switched. And again, there's this, work life balance, guilt. But there's a guilt that, as far as, I would be the guy, back in the day when I was even single, that if, I was running a pretty large company at the time, and if it was 4:15 and I was 40 minutes away from my office, I would drive home I'm sorry, I would drive to the office before I would go home, just to prove, just to show people that, there was one or two things that I needed to get done, even if they weren't even things I had to get done. I just wanted to show them that you can't leave the office at 3 o'clock, have a meeting at 4, and just call it a day. That's not how you're going to be successful. And I don't think in any business, and that's how I was hardwired as, seeing my dad working, seeing all, my uncles working, and my aunts. And, one of my aunts worked at a lobster company until she was 78 years old as a bookkeeper,
Wow.
and that's how I grew up on lobster. But, she, that was her thing every day. That's what she did.
Wow. How often do you reflect when even like to this day at the stage of your life? Like how often do you reflect on those, even as we're talking today, maybe like stories
Yeah.
of seeing your family, your dad, your uncles, your aunts, the hard work, the independence, when you're having a tough day?
Yeah.
How often do you reflect on those stories?
Um, yeah, that's interesting. I had an uncle, like I said, who was a mentor to me, and he, excuse me, pardon me, take that out. Sorry, hang on,
It's okay.
choking up just thinking about it. But everybody took things very, very lightly in my company and my family. Sorry, I'll come back in a minute. Um, they loved to laugh. They didn't take anything serious, and I think that's something that was part of my childhood. That I could see people, whether they had, a tough day, or, they were traveling to Japan or whatever, they would always have an upbeat, type of disposition. And, I think that I think about my family often. I think about all the little family parties that we'd have on weekends where, somebody was designated to go pick up my grandparents, about 30 minutes away, and you had that opportunity. I was too young. I didn't have that, but I still hear stories today about driving back from, Brookline to Sharon, and them coming back for, a family thing on Sunday. So it's just when I think about my family, I don't think about anybody being depressed, full of anxiety, short with anybody. Everybody they just loved life, and they just dealt with them because a lot of them lived through the depression and in some really, really hard times. So I think the way that I think about all the 5 types of cycles that I've been with in the staffing business and in our economy. You get one boss referred to it as scarring. It just doesn't bother you as much anymore. So I think you become more even. You go from like this, like highs and lows, to more of this, and maybe it's not great, because the passion isn't high, but it's really important that you just we're actors and actresses. So I'm not gonna show up when I walk into the office or I walk into my family. I do my best not to wear emotions on my sleeve, I guess is the best way to put it. Instinctually. Yeah.
Okay. I get. It's funny you said when you talked about well, I heard optimism. I heard fun. I heard, and there's no reason it's no surprise to me why you've had then. I mean, this makes sense. Everything you've learned from the independence, the hard work, the grit, the toughness, the hard knocks, then the laughing, the fun, like you are in the perfect role for you in life. To me, it's like now I'm getting to know you a little bit better here, and it makes sense. Um, Before we go into a few things, I do want to ask, like, tell me what was the hardest part about being a ski parent, seeing your son just be an absolute beast on the mountains, like going 7,000 miles an hour and like, just, oh my God, please don't break your back. Please don't break your face. Like, how
Yeah.
scary was that as a dad?
Well, it's still scary. But and people ask me that question all the time, and I would say that it's been a process, since he's been a young kid. So we've seen him race. We've seen him go up the ranks, and some people say, what's it like? And I guess it's pretty impressive to have a two-time Olympian as a son. To me, it was a natural transition for him through his sport, like getting to an NFL or the NBA or something like that. Not paid as well as an MLB player or even college athlete these days. But yeah, it's again putting something in a box and just watching him being a technician on the hill, and watching his turns and watching it very very closely. I was part of a master ski race program for about 3 years a few years ago because I wanted to really understand more about what he was doing. I just want his head to be in the game. I want him to be ready to race. He's emotionally, it's probably one of the hardest sports out there. Just to correct you, not 7,000 miles an hour, but he was clocked at 99.6 miles an hour in Switzerland. They wanted
99.
99.6 miles an hour. At one of the, they have a gun that goes off, like the radar gun for the
I just felt
police.
nerves in my
Yeah.
belly when you said that.
Right, and he is basically going down in his underwear. I mean, he's in a very, very thin thing with a few pads, but nothing more with a helmet. I trust him. I know that growing up with him in his sport, that he understands where his limits are more than a lot of people. And I trust that he's going to make the right decision at the right time. There's times to pick up speed in the course. There's time to give it the little sideways click. But it's tough. I'm not gonna say I'm not human. I see him come down, and what we call it is when he comes over the finish line, and the bottom of the ski is called the P-tex. We always say we're very happy when he comes down with the P-tex, whether he's first or last. So so it is a tough sometimes 2.5 minutes for me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Where, how do you think you evolved that trust? Like, that seems like a tough thing
yeah.
to do. Like, how did you come to that realization?
Yeah, it's just again, we're talking. If he's 7 and 33 now, he's been doing this for a multiple of years, and we've had a lot of what we've had a lot of talks, mostly in the disappointment. When he does well, I don't hear from him. But when you call it talking it off the ledge or whatever. He'll be at a race and he'll have a really bad day, and he'd say, "Dad, can you go for a walk?" And I just go, "Hallelujah! I love these walks." I just this is that's my time. I just get the chills thinking about it. I don't get a lot of those, but it's time where I can listen to what he's really thinking about, and then I can take what he's thinking and understand how he's applying it to his trade. And that's how I know he's where he should be, and what he's doing, is correct. My wife, I did my wife wanted him to be a golfer, because that's a lot easier on his body.
Sure.
You talked about he's had accidents. He's crashed. He crashed so hard one day, and he's built like a hockey player. He hit it's called the B fence. There's A fence, which is this high stuff you see it in the races, and there's B fence. They have like sometimes 3 or 4 of those, and it's basically fish netting, and they go through that slows them down. He's had gone so fast hitting those that he actually had melted plastic on his helmet. You know, um, and he's been
Wow.
injured. Not bad. He's had some things. I was telling a friend that when he was doing the NORAMs, the North American Series, his ski came off the first day, and the skis are so sharp that it cut his calf, like very very deep, like very very deep, almost to the bone. They have
Jeez.
doctors that follow him around. You don't have that in all sports. So the doctor basically stitched him back up that day. And if you look at his Instagram, it's Jared Goldberg skier. There's a picture of him holding up a red sock. And they stitched him up that night. They happened to have an orthopedic surgeon there, and he says, "Jared, I can fix this for you right now and then." Well, Jared says, "Can I ski tomorrow if I do that?" He says, "Well, let's take one step at a time." So he stitched him up, stitched him up. I think there was 4 layers of muscle and things that they had to put back together. They taped him up. He raced the next day and won the race.
Jesus.
It was a Super G race, and I was like calling. I said, "Is he going to race today?" To the coach, and they're up in Canada. He says, "Yeah, I think he's going to race." And then I saw the live timing, and he came in first. So he kind of needed that finish because he was
Wow.
leading in the standings for the whole overall for that year, and ended up becoming the overall skier for that lower level. It's down a few levels, but a very very important stepping stone to his career, and got on World Cup starts. So I don't know. He's just one of those kids that if he felt he could do it, he would do it. But if he felt he couldn't, but he always had that passion to say, I'll just do it, if I can.
Wow.
So
I love, well, he had the passion, but I would think some way you and your lovely bride helped unleash it. And you just kind of like kept putting gas in the flame a little bit and being in the right environment. Um, One of the things that stood out to that story is not the first time he got first, or the battle and the injury. What stood out to me about the story that I think every dad dreams about is, hey, dad, can we go for a walk?
yeah,
And the fact that you've done, I think, a fantastic job, you and your wife, that to create these moments where your child does want to come talk to you. I mean, that's something I have a freshman in college and 16-year-old. Um, I love. I am like a curiosity psycho, Don.
good.
I
Yes,
believe that
yeah,
it's a life superpower that none of us talk about enough. And I think when, to your point earlier, when you would wait till your son came to you early, I think that's helped draw that out, where you met on his terms versus you, the one, which is, your good friend, the introduced me to Todd Francis. Like, if we're coming to always in like the leader executive down to the employee, they're going to resist you and they're going to get defensive. But if you patience, let them kind of foster these environments where you're helping them find their passion, find what they want to do, create environments where they can be vulnerable enough to share, hey man, I had a tough day. Like, what did you see something, dad? Or just to be able to have that moment. I mean, that's what a blessing,
yeah. I totally agree with that from my heart. Yeah.
And well, thank you for sharing. Oh, I could keep talking to you, but I want to make sure in a second, I'm going to ask you to talk about ConsultNet, because I actually learned about ConsultNet way back in the 2004 when I once competed against your lovely Seattle office. They were quite a beast back in the
Yes.
day, annoying at times because I hated finding out I lost a ConsultNet, but I'm over it, Don. I'm over it. I'm not going to
Yeah.
bring back those war wounds. But if you were to summarize part of our conversation that dads just can take from the things that you learned growing up, the things that you and your wife applied to help raise a 2-time Olympian, which is freaking unbelievable to hear on. It's so cool. Into like 2 or 3 like themes. Like, tell me what comes to
Yeah.
mind that dads can take from our conversation.
It's the hardest thing for me, and I've been thinking about this a lot lately, is kind of like where I fit in this whole picture. There's 3 of us. Obviously, he has lots of friends and we have relatives and stuff. But it's the mom and the dad sometimes have to be against the kid, because the kid is like the monster, this growing being that's shooting sparks out from everywhere. And we've had a few of these incidents why he was just crazy. I mean, I don't know what your son was like when he was 11 or 12, or your daughter, but when they're growing, their hormones are changing. They're becoming men or women, and they're just like off the wall. Earlier, my wife came home one day and she goes, "Would you? There's something in the back of the truck, the car. Would you put it up downstairs?" And she was a phys ed major, and I put a punching bag up in our basement. And I brought him downstairs and I said, "When you feel you're out of control, either we're going to send you down there or you're going to go down there on your own." It's about 11 or 12 years old. And we've had situations where he'd be at dinner, he'd just be crazy. And I would just go, "Jared, keep it clean here. But get downstairs right now, 10 minutes." Not, he'd look at me and go, he knew he had to. And you'd hear, hoo, ha, hoo, ha, hee, ha, hee, and then he'd come back up all sweaty, hair would be a mess. He goes, I'm good. And he'd sit down and we'd have dinner, So, it was,
Oh, so good.
it was classic that my wife came up with that idea. In the Japanese workplace, they actually have swords and they have a room where people could go in there because they're so frustrated. So, one point is that collectively, the mom and the dad have to be a united front. Once you break that bond, you're in for a hell of a ride, as they say. You know, it's just they see the chink in the armor. And believe me, it was what I started off saying. This is the hardest thing for me to do because I love this kid. I mean, it's unconditional love both ways. And I don't want to upset him. I don't, but sometimes, my wife she was probably more of the man sometimes in the relationship, which was great.
Yep.
That's great. So we'd have to sit down and we had this conversation one day and we were saying, okay, this is how it's going to have to be. And it was one of these days where he just came up from hitting the punching bag. And we sat at this table and we said, you don't talk back to your mom. You don't talk back to me. You listen to all adults, things like, the typical things. You don't talk back when we say you're at a friend's house and we call you up, you call up and I say, come back at 7. You say, no, I'm coming back at 9. That's embarrassing for us, and I explained it. I went down this whole list of things. And, he screamed, he kind of hollered, and Annette and I were sitting there going, what is this thing sitting across from us? And eventually he hit his head basically on the glass table. I remember him doing that because it was pretty close because he was small. And he looked up and he looked at both of us. He goes, I got it. And it was like such an important thing,
Mm.
a learning experience for him. And I think that's really important that a family can do that. And I don't care if you are, divorced, not together, separated, or whatever, but you got to make sure you're on the same page all the time. And if you don't know you're on the same page, you got to go, you know what, I'm going to get back to you on that. I want to tell a little story because it's really important if we have a few more minutes. It's about this consistency that I think that I came up with from thinking about talking to you. And this is, again, it's all about him today for sure. It usually is anyway. Um, it was January, it was dark. It was 6 o'clock in the morning. My alarm goes off and the house is quiet. The lights were on in the back for some reason. I think I left them on, but I could see flurries and it was dark and I knew how cold it was outside. Well, Jared had committed to doing early morning training for his ski program that year, and he was one of the youngest kids. I think he was maybe 10 years old. And my wife said again, she says, if you commit to this, and she was great about this. I think it's just from her PE background. She said you have to do it for the whole year. And of course I'm nodding my head, yeah. So I go in his room and I go, Jared, it's time to get up. And from this little cute little voice, I hear, Dad, we've been off, I've been skiing all week. I'm so tired. I just want to sleep this morning. I'm so aches and pains and everything. And I go, that's okay. Honey, go back to bed. We'll go to the second session. So I get back into bed and getting all comfortable again, and all of a sudden Annette bounces up and she goes, you guys are late. What's going on? What are you doing? I says, oh, Jared's that. You get him out of bed. He's going to do this. She's not a shrew, but, she's committed. She
Yeah.
says, he said he's going to do this. You need to go. And I walk in the other room and I said, Jared, he goes, I heard it. I'll be up in a few minutes. And, the important part of that whole thing was, again, the consistency part of commitment. And again, it's the chink in the armor. If, what I said before is if you show that there's a chink between you and your wife or your husband, whatever it is, and he knows he can exploit it, he's going to exploit it. If he knew that day was a day that he could sleep in, I took him up later, that might have been the end of his ski career right then and there because he didn't have the commitment to get done what he had to do and the hard things. There's nothing better than being at that mountain for sunrise, but to get out of bed is one of the hardest things. So, commitment's important. Don't negotiate with your kids. Things like that. The philosophy is it's cataclysmic. Cataclysmic if you let them start guiding how you're going to be thinking about what is so important. And I think for the most part, I think we've kept that line going, and we've both supported each other to do that. But it's so hard when you love this little thing and you just want to you
So
want it
hard.
to be your pal, and it's but it's hard to do. And he's 33 now, and we're very very close, and we have great communication. So there's a lot of things that are good, and I have so many more stories I could tell you about things I've done behind the scenes to help him, in his career. But we can leave that for another time.
United front as parents, gold. Um, Help instill commitment, gold. Never negotiate with your kids, gold. The only time I let my kids negotiate with me, Don, when they were younger,
Yeah,
I said, peas or carrots, you get a pick.
yeah, good. I like that. I
I'm
like
winning, but they get a pick.
that.
And I, it's funny. Like sometimes the people say don't sweat the small things.
Yeah.
I disagree. I think sometimes you
Oh,
do sweat the small
100%.
things because that's a massive flashpoint moment in his life.
Yeah,
I mean, you remembered it like this, and I've told my kids, I said, the one thing you'll never regret is exercise. When you do a workout, you're never going to regret doing it. You feel better when you get done.
yeah,
And so, like, we're a very active family. Exercise is important to us, um, and it's fun to see like my kids embrace like hard work and choice. And I remind them often that Dad's got no eligibility left. I am washed up and done. I can no longer play college sports. If
yeah,
that's what you want to do, if that's not what I want you to do, I'm going to help you unlock what you want to do, but I'll teach
yeah,
you like the things that I did to get me to that level. But if you don't want to do it, I'm not going to go do it for you. And I love the fact that you guys, when your wife, as warm as that bed was, as cozy as those blankets were, she said, "Oh hell no,
yeah,
get your ass up!" And you guys we're going to fix this thing. And so I love that story because I could see it, I visually saw it, and so okay. In the spirit of time, I now
sure.
want to hear about ConsultNet, and because so much has changed since I first ran into you guys back in 2004, I think 2006, something like that. But the evolvement, the growth, the acquisitions, the investments. I mean, you guys are doing some really really cool stuff. For people that don't know who ConsultNet is, and the other brands that are associated with this, tell us a little bit more about what you guys are doing.
Well, I mean, back to the whole, family type scenario, we're a family of technology based companies basically dedicated to providing human capital to our customers. So, what I mean by that is, whether our customers need, direct or permanent employees, in their company, a nearshore team of technologists or a certain expertise to get a product or product completed. We strategize with our clients to customize a tailored solution for their needs. I mean, people can have a product or project in the company, but if they don't have human capital or people to do it, it's not going to get done, as we've been talking about today. So we do have a state-of-the-art facility in Guadalajara, Mexico, that supports many of our customers, in the United States, and we have the onshore managed services to take care of everything in the United States. Any solution is customized around your needs or the needs of our customers. Our verticals are endless, and we draw from our in-house expertise, an extensive network through our recruiting teams around the country. We are experts at recruiting people. That's what we do, and they're major breadwinner people of our of families. Our clients range from Fortune 100 companies to, I call them, well-funded startups, and everything in between. And as you said, we've morphed into many many different things along the way, and our company has changed immensely. And I have a really melded new executive staff, and I've never worked with a more experienced team than I've ever done right now. It's amazing. So anybody needs any type of human capital, whether it be one person or a team of people, we're there, and we have the expertise of doing this for a long, long time.
So good. Well, I've been grateful. I'm lucky enough to have met two of your executives. I've not met JP in person, even though I feel like I've known him forever, but I've also met Alicia. She and I met for the first
Good.
time in Dallas.
Awesome.
And she actually worked with a former colleague. I'm actually a really good friend of mine. But I was there for a speaking engagement. She was there for a big conference, and it just kind of worked out. And just JP was like, "Hey, you should try to meet Alicia." So I was like, "Oh," and it worked out perfectly. And we had a great time. And she's a fantastic leader. And you keep doing what you're doing, man, because it's really been cool to learn more about you guys and see the impact you're having in the industry. As definitely, you guys are an industry leader for sure. So
Well, great. We're really really working on being a better company. 50% of our executives are women and men.
love
So
it.
it's an amazing team of strategists that all we want to do is provide good human capital to our customers, and that's what we do every day. So
Wow. Well, if people want to learn more about ConsultNet or Don the dad or Jared the skier,
Yep.
are you a social media guy? Can I send
Yep.
people there?
Yep. Yep. I'm on LinkedIn, of course.
Yep.
Donald J. Goldberg, I believe.
Okay.
Instagram, D Goldberg 711.
D Goldberg 711. That's
You
like
know,
seven
yeah,
number.
yeah.
Okay.
But you can find me through, consultnet.com and all our family of companies that work together. And, we have a thing called 5x1 selling that I can get into later, or you'll see that on our website, because I found over the years, and, being in this business for over 40 years now, which is crazy to think, that companies need different things, and we've morphed into the companies so that we can have this technology alternative in the near shore. Because like India is really tough right now. Our facility is central time zone, so we save so much man working hours if there's any mistakes that are going on, and it's just communication is great. And we have offices all over the country, and you'll see that from the website stuff. And I'd love to share with anybody that wants to talk to me directly. I'd be
Love it.
happy to talk about how I can help.
We will make sure this is all linked in the show notes. If you're a consultant, you want to learn more about
Yes.
the opportunities they have. If you're a company looking to hire great talent, make sure you check ConsultNet out. We'll make sure that's tagged in the show notes. Um, Don, it's now time to wrap up, where I take you through the lightning round.
Okay.
I'm sure you might have, if you listen to an episode before, you know what's coming. I don't, because I'm going to show you the negative hits of taking too many hits in college, not bong hits, but football hits.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And
Good.
my job is to ask these questions quickly.
Yeah.
Your job is to answer them quickly, but my biggest job is to get a giggle out of you.
Okay.
Okay, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
true or false? Your wife hits the ball farther than you.
False. More
Okay.
accurately.
Okay, I giggled at my own joke first, which does not count. I lose already. Okay,
Okay.
true or false? You once were a two-time Olympian ski jumper.
False.
False. Okay. If I was to go back to the small town 20 miles outside of Boston, what would be the one word that would describe Don Goldberg as a kid?
Donnie Goldberg. Everyone called me Donnie there, and they still do today.
Okay. Here we go. If I was to come to your house for dinner tonight, what would we have?
Probably lamb chops.
That sounds good.
Lamb chops
Uh,
with a nice something on the side. She's really good at making quick, short of a cook. She's great.
love it. Favorite movie of all time is?
Oh God, favorite movie of all time. Uh, I'm going to say Animal House. If we're talking about dogs.
Fantastic. I could quote that for days with you. Hooked it. Sliced. Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through college.
Yes.
Oh, we have not had an Animal House call out on the podcast, which was, I think, a very, very. You should win something. Um, Tell me the last book you read.
Last book I'm read or reading. I'm reading a very, very good book right now. It's called "Win the Relationship, Not the Deal."
I did not know that was coming, everybody. That is not a shameless plug, but thank
Guess
you for
guess
that.
guess who wrote this, Casey? And I love it, by the way. It's really some really good common sense stuff. I love it.
Wow, you're very kind. I
Um,
did not know that was coming. I'm going to make the
right,
host blush here.
right. I
Um,
would say that adventure stories. I listen to. I watch. All right, I'm sorry. I read Wilbur Smith. He's a South African author. He's historical fiction, and I read a lot of his books. I've probably read them all. So,
Very cool. If there was to be a book written about your life, tell me the title.
book written about my life. Gone in many directions, but seems to get stuff done.
Okay, I like that. Now, Donnie, if I can call you Donnie, you are the casting director of this
Okay.
new movie that's they want to make, because every book is it's selling out, and now Netflix and Apple TV are fighting over this book. They've gone to you and they said, "Hey, Don or Donnie, you are the casting director. I need to know who is going to be cast as you in this critically acclaimed hit new movie that's just going to crush it and win a Golden Globe."
Oh man, that's a tough one. I go. From The Rock to Jack Black, because I like tough, but I also like funny. So
The Rock to Jack Black. That is outstanding. What a genre and a mix. That is what a good visual.
yeah,
Okay, and then last question. Tell me two words that describe your wife.
um, incredible and driven. Yeah,
Boom. Lightning round's complete. We both laughed. I actually laughed more at my own jokes, which means I
yeah,
lose. You get the dub. Congratulations. It's been such a blast getting to know you. I appreciate your trust in coming on the podcast and telling your story. And I think hopefully there's all the employees at ConsultNet learn more about their boss and what a driven, down to earth guy he is. It's been fun. I've learned from you. I got a page and a half of notes here. I want to thank our sponsors for continuing to support. I want to thank everybody that's watched us on YouTube. Thanks for coming to us weekly. If you're in your car, if you're in the gym, wherever you're consuming these episodes, thanks for committing to being the best quarterback or leader of your home you can be, and finding ways to become better, because that's really the goal. Why I started this nearly going on 6 years now, is because
exactly.
it's we all got gaps, and doesn't matter if you as an executive or me as a at a great run staffing to doing what I'm doing now. Our kids don't care. What they care about is, are we present? Are we listening? Are we helping them? Are we helping them unlock their gifts and treasures and talents? And in the end, stay grounded, everybody. Be humble, be vulnerable, be curious. Those are superpowers that I've learned in life that I continue to find ways to sharpen each and every day. But Don, again, thank you so much for your time today. And I can't wait to meet you in person one of these days soon.
I look forward, Casey. Thanks again for your time. This is awesome. Thank you.